I'm Rhys Osborne. I was born in San Diego, California, but I grew up in Coronado. I never really knew what I wanted to do, I was always interested in a bunch of different things, and didn't really know which one to go for. Every college that I applied a different major. So I was like applying to Cal as an architecture major, RISD, like photography, and NYU film school, just like all different, UCLA economics. And then I was on USC and I was like, okay, doing my normal like choose one. And then I just saw this one that said Iowa Arts Tech Biz, and I just found the website, and then I was like, I need to go here. I always felt like I was trying to get my friends to buy into the stuff that I was doing. I think as a creative person, it's really hard to like prove yourself to your circle, or like to make something that people like is really hard. Bedroom 6 is a movable feast. So it's an experience. Absinthe is a drink that's at its core, to me, really all about connection. Because of the ritual process, and because of the fountain has 2 spigots or 4 spigots or 8 or 12. You're never drinking this drink alone. So yeah, I guess it goes all the way back to my first glass of absinthe, which I had in Barcelona when I was 18 years old. I was at a bar called Bar Marcella, which is the bar that Ernest Hemingway and Pablo Picasso and Gertrude Stein and all those people would frequent when they were visiting Barcelona from Paris. And so I had absinthe for the first time, and I just fell in love with the culture and the rich creative history and all that stuff. And so I started asking for absinthe at different bars that I would go to. I kind of like started seeking it out. So I was on the other side of the table a bunch of times. I was like, I was getting the experience from other people. I turned 21 and I wanted to buy my first bottle of alcohol, and I wanted it to be absinthe. And so I brought it home, and my friends were downstairs, and they were like, oh, we want to try the absinthe. Like, all right. So I was bringing the fountain, the whole setup, and the bottle and everything downstairs. And then I was like, you know what? Like, fuck this. Like, I'm bringing it back upstairs. I'm doing it in my room, doing it my way, doing like my music, and just making this like kind of like funny, jokey experience out of it. And then it was them who were like, you should be doing this. Like, this is actually cool. Like, this is fun. I invited 12 pairs of people that I just viewed as really cool people to have conversations with over this drink, and then after that, the rest is history.
Describing it, and I'll show you how it's done. I'm gonna have you take a sugar cube and place it on the top of your spoon right there in the middle. Yeah. So this could be your first time when you get it down to you start pulling out. It's 1 quart absinthe to 5 parts water. So what you're actually drinking in the drink is like 12 to 14%, which is the same as the water for you. Birthday shot.
The person that I'm targeting is curious and considers themselves creative, and to a certain extent isn't lonely, but is seeking connection, seeking a real connection that they haven't gotten from other forms of nightlife, other experiences. Someone who wants to come and actually have a real conversation and put down the phone and talk face to face and really appreciate the people they're with and be grateful for the present moment. Like, all of that stuff is just something that I really try to emphasize, and that's something that specifically since I started emphasizing it, people have really liked that. So I think like an opportunity to be with the people you love and really be with them is something that I enforce through the intimacy. So when you come in here, I prepare this traditional Parisian style preparation, but I do add a little bit of the bohemian twist where I do light it on fire. Absinthe was first invented in 1798 in Switzerland, and it gained a lot of popularity throughout France, specifically through the 1800s and the early 1900s. The wine industry saw absinthe as this competitor because people started drinking absinthe because there was a shortage of wine. So the wine industry actually ran like these smear campaigns on absinthe that kind of led it to have a bad reputation. And people used to say that it was, you know, all sorts of hallucinogenic. A lot of writers actually in the early 1900s, late 1800s, and a lot of artists like the counterculture kind of claiming absinthe as theirs and sort of making this narrative around it. Like Oscar Wilde saying, you know, when I left the bar, because I had had absinthe, you know, when I left the bar there was a field of daisies like brushing my leg on the way out.
Every week? Yeah. So I do this every week and then sometimes twice a week. Alright guys, blow them out. Blow out those fires. Kind of like yeah. That's a good group name.
I think growing up, connection was always like a big thing for me, and it sort of started to solidify when I started to see not only just interpersonal connection, but like and relationships, but really like connection as being a driving force for like the universe, right? Like if I were to believe in something, and I do, it would be in connection, kind of like the coming together of two things to create one. I've always had this link to connection between disciplines and connection between you know, schools of thought, things that you thought were different at first but now are, you know, obviously the same, at the root of their being, like, are the same. That's kind of where it comes from. And then that also, you know, that also definitely applies to interpersonal relationships and connections, is realizing that underneath both of these two bodies are the same spirit acting in different ways. The same energy, which is, you know, it's like, it's love, it's connection. We're all humans. We all have stories to believe in, and that's definitely the one that helps me the most is the story of connection. I think my purpose is, I'm starting to kind of narrow down on it, which is, you know, find something old. Find something that people don't currently like. Find something that people don't currently have a good perception of. 2 years ago, I was working in, you know, trying to bring hostels to America, like hostel culture, and how do you redesign and redefine that to our generation, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then I kind of realized, like, well, absinthe, it's the same thing at its core. It's really finding something beautiful that could connect us, that's old and like has an old story, and creating a new story around it, creating a new experience around it. That's the purpose, and so that's what I'm doing right here, and that's what I'm doing every night that I'm standing here, is I'm living that purpose, and that's what I would be doing if I wasn't getting paid for it. I think if you talk about goals, like my number one goal and purpose as a person is to approach this loneliness crisis in our generation. So the fact that our generation is the loneliest generation, we have the highest rates of depression and anxiety, highest rates of suicide. I think that's something that's really, really sad, and something that I personally connect to a lot. And I think that even on our campus specifically, lately, we've been shown that that's a really big problem, and wellness is a really big problem. And a lot of research on depression and anxiety has been showing that loneliness is a big kind of root cause that could be affecting, you know, all of these kids, all of us. And a recent study by Cigna showed that actually meaningful interactions, if people have meaningful interactions, they're far less likely to end up on this loneliness index. So they score 20 points, up to 20 points higher on this loneliness index than other people. Only half of Americans have meaningful interactions daily. So an interaction that really like actually gets you thinking, gets you feeling like you belong, stuff like that. So what this comes down to is that our generation is constantly just, you know, like this, and we haven't been given the opportunity to really sit down, especially in drinking context, especially in social context, is sit down and actually have a face-to-face conversation. The craziest thing is that it's like literally not a job at all to me. I work like 4 to 5 hours that night every week, so it's a long shift, and I don't even notice. Like, just the slots, it's just like boom, 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 boom. But the reason I love it so much is that, like, when I'm standing right here, when I'm serving people, that's my true self. Like, that's beyond ego. I feel like that's beyond, like, it's like a flow state thing where I'm just like completely in love with every person in the room. You know, it's just like that exchange of like energy is so beautiful, that yeah, that's the best feeling. So whenever, you know, anyone's coming in, I'm always like, oh yeah, like, you know, how's your night? They're like, oh good, how's yours? I'm like, best night of the week, always best night of the week.